Thank you so much for giving your eyes and time. We really appreciate it. This is a quick introduction video for the Symmetrics platform. So, what is Symmetrics? It's a unique HR tech and analytics platform unifying job seekers, recruiters, and employers by helping simplify conversations of wage, job titles, skills, technologies, tools, and so on and so forth. Let's talk about what problems Symmetrics is solving in the industry. So, we look at the interaction between candidates, recruiters and staffers, and employers in the HR tech space. And some of the problems that Symmetrics tries to solve are job changing is very inefficient and it is fraught with very uncertain information for the candidates. The negotiation of wage is sometimes a hit or miss, and so on and so forth. From the recruiters and staffers' perspective, making a fair deal, as perceived fair from the candidates and employers' side, is generally based on luck. And long term loyalty cannot be built if such a perspective exists. The employer side always wants to build more talent, and to build more talent, especially in this modern age where there is quite a bit of scarcity of skilled workforce, a question always exists: how do I pay fair, but at the same time compete for talent in the market? How do I know what is fair? And so on and so forth. So, these problems is what Symmetrics is trying to address and bring common baseline conversations to the table. Now, what is our vision? Our vision is ultimately becoming a benchmarking platform wherein the analytics are trustworthy for all three roles involved in the HR space: candidates, recruiters, and employers. We also help accelerate talent access and mobility, and we also integrate with course providers because we do provide a quite bit of information for career changing advice. What technologies and tools are the hottest that people can adopt to meet their goals of wage, and so on and so forth. So, for all inquiries for business, career, investing, partnership, please reach out to the website symmetrics.fyi, or you can always write an email to hello@symmetrics.fyi. All right. With that said, let's jump right in terms of how the reports of the business intelligence or the analytics are organized on Symmetrics. We'll also have a hands-on demo, but first let's quickly, look at an overall view or from two different angles of how can we look at these analytics. Let's first look at um, the symmetrics dimensions. Anytime we talk about analytics, multidimensional data, we are definitely talking about analytics from a perspective of hierarchical dimensions, sometimes not so as well. What you see on the screen is how we portray various analytics. For example, what you're looking at, let's say in this case, we are looking at this uh, year 2021. So in the year 2021, what we are trying to look at is within a certain state, there might be many cities, right? Within a city, there might be many employers, and each employer hires for multiple jobs. So we go down this path and we analyze for each of those jobs: what is the wage, what is the success rate, how many jobs such existed, what are the skills associated with the job, and so on and so forth. So this is one way of looking at the hierarchical information. Now there could be another way of looking at it. So for example, this is another way of looking at it, which is in the year 2020, an employer could hire in multiple states. Within each of those states, the employer could hire in multiple cities, and within each of those cities, the employer could hire multiple jobs, right? So now you're looking at the metrics from an hierarchy of employer, state, city, and job. Okay. Let's take one more example and move to another perspective. Now, let's say, we are looking at from a perspective of, if I could get this right, in a moment. There you go. In the year 2019, let's say a same job could exist in multiple employers, right? So let's say, for example, a data engineer. The data engineer job could be hired at multiple employers. Now, for each employer, again, the employer could hire the same job in multiple states and within those states, cities. So I think you get the point in terms of how we look at this multidimensional data and how the same dimensions can change the hierarchy depending on how you look at. All right. Now let's take another whole different view of how the analytics are organized. Now this is another way of looking at the analytics. You will see that in a moment as we step into the platform, how this all will all correlate. So you can see the symmetrics is the overall product or platform, and in one way you can look at all of the reports are classified or categorized into informational, what if, and goal based. So informational, as I suggest, they are informational. What if is if you can simulate, example, what if I want to move from San Francisco to San Jose? How will my wages change? What can I expect in terms of the number of jobs that are within my domain, within my skill set, and so on. And then goal based, an example would be, I might have a goal of making 200K base salary. Which employers fit my bill? Which states fit my bill? Which cities fit my bill? Which postcodes fit my bill? And so on and so forth. Now, within each of those informational categories, you could further subcategorize them into employer-based reports, job title-based reports, state-based reports, which are essentially location, state, and city. You can also classify them into industry and job type, because sometimes there are many people who would like to remain within the same industry but switch jobs. They would like to have the similar job type, but then again switch between those job types. So on the left, what you see is one form of looking at categorizing and subcategorizing the analytics that we have. Now, there are further categories like industry analysis. Let's say, what kind of employers fall under what type of industry. Which industry is growing, oil and petrol industry is growing in which state. Maybe I want to go to that state because I find more probability of remaining within my domain, which is oil and natural gas. Job family, you could have a computer and information system managers, which is a job family, but then there could be so many other jobs underneath that, and you want to know where are these jobs, which city, which state, which employer, and so on and so forth. And then finally, there are lots of miscellaneous categories as well, especially providing analytics on the law firms and benchmarking firms. Law firms, because there's a lot of immigration that happens in the high skilled space, and there's quite a bit of support required from the law firms. And we kind of analyze the efficiency of which law firm provides us the maximum success rate of converting jobs for immigrants and so on. Benchmarking firms obviously are required because there's quite a bit of benchmarking of wages that need to happen, and depending on the year, location, job type, you always want to look at what is the right wage that you need to get paid. So these two are two perspectives of how you can look at the reports. Let's now quickly jump into the platform itself, correlating some of these. So let's take for example this first one. I'm going to take an example of this one, right? State, city, employer, and job. Okay. So as soon as you log in, you will be on the dashboards, and you will find a bunch of reports. What you will be really looking for in this case, now let's go back and see. We are looking for analytics under a state. Okay, that's how you need to interpret this. So we look for, let's go to the list type, and we go in and look for state KPIs. Okay. So the way the all of the insights, so each of the overall dashboard is further split into You have the filters here, wherein you can select your filter values, and this area covers all of the insights. So it's a grid of various graphs and information that you want to further look into. So let's say we are looking at in year 2022 for the state of California. Now, from a wage KPIs or metrics perspective, in California there were about 10K job titles that were hired in 2022. The number of cities that hired is 426. The number of employers is about 500, close to 5,000. The wage trend, if we see from 2001 all the way in California, you can see that the lower end was about 64.8K in 2001. The upper end was about 71.5. And then, we come all the way to 2022, we find it in between 143 to 154. Now, these are statewide averages, right? Now, what are some of the top employers in the state? In the descending order, in 2022, in the state of California, we find these as the top um, employers in terms of the upper wage that they paid. All right. You can see as you hover on these, you can see the actual values. Okay. Now, the same information, which is presented as a bar graphs with top 10, is now presented in a tabular format with all the records. As you can see, all the 5,000 odd records are presented here. And what you look at is each employer, the lower end of the wage, the upper end of the wage, and the prevailing wage. So the prevailing wage is the wage under which paying would be violating labor laws, right? That means this is the government set rate. You cannot pay lower than that. Um, and so the assessment done during that time, paying for that job title is, 157K in case of this employer, and so on and so forth. So you can further search on any of these records. You can search for Facebook, right, and so on and so forth. All right. Now, this is what I meant by looking into hierarchy, right? So you're looking at state, city, and employer. What we have just looked at is state and employer. Let's look at state and city now. So, oh, you know what? Let's look at state and job. So within that state, these are all the top jobs, with the corresponding lower end of the wage, upper end of the wage, and then the corresponding prevailing wage. Now you can see that if these two numbers are the same, that means the employer reported it as a point value and not as a range value, which is frankly a bit more easier to interpret than a range. So on and so forth. There are close to about 10,000 records or more. You could always do a search on here for the job title that you're looking for. Okay. As you keep scrolling down, you can see the top cities, as we just mentioned. Going back to this, right? This is under the state. You can find various cities. So these are the top cities in terms of the wages paid, and the same information is present in the city format, right? So that's a quick way of looking at the information state, city, employer. Now, each of these, as we have mentioned, you can pivot on an employer, you can pivot on a state, you can pivot on a job, and accordingly look at metrics for each of the other dimensions. So what we looked at is the wage KPIs. Now, while wage is very important for many immigrants, approval KPIs are also equally important. The reason approvals are important is because the immigrants who are on a work visa here would also like to know how many cases are being approved versus how many are being rejected within the state of California. Again, across each state, across each employer, and so on. They would like to definitely improve the chances of getting hired, and so they would want to target those corresponding cities and employers where the success rate is very high. And so you would find all of that information here in a very nicely presented format for under the approval KPIs, right? Approval KPIs tab. So this is a very quick demo of what you can do with the information on the Symmetrics platform. Now we have just scratched maybe less than 1% of what is available in the product. There is obviously so much more. As we said, you could go to dashboards. You can, let's say we sort it by title. We just looked at information state KPIs. You could go ahead and look at information job title KPIs. You could go and look for information industry KPIs, so on and so forth. The we will try to create as many videos as possible for each of these. But frankly, we believe that these are pretty self-explanatory, and people have gained a lot. Right now, it is still a free platform, and people have gained a lot by using this platform. And as we mentioned, one way of looking at these reports is goal based and what if. Now, let me take a quick example of looking at what if. So let's say you're moving from one city to another city, and you want to maximize your opportunities as you move from one city to another city. So let's say, for example, in this case, in the year 2022, in the state of California, I don't know, you're moving from, yeah, let's just take an example. You're moving from San Francisco to, let me just move this around here a little bit. Let's say you're moving from California to, let's say, Sunnyvale, San Francisco to Sunnyvale, right? So when you apply these filters, what you see on your right are the quick information. So the top 10 employers from city. So these were the top 10 employers in San Francisco, right? And each of those metrics, what is the minimum wage, what is the lower wage, upper wage, and then the prevailing wage. Now, you could see the top 10 employers in the two city, right? The Sunnyvale. And how much did they pay? So you can start quickly comparing. These are the top 10 employers in the two city. Maybe I'll start looking for those employers because my goal is to make more money, right? The same information is presented as, on the left side you have from city, which is San Francisco, and on the right side you have two city, which is Sunnyvale. Okay. So again, as I said, this is one category of report. You could also have a goal based report. um, let's take a simple example, goal based. Let's say, city level, you're looking at the goal. So let's say, you're in the city of San Francisco. You have a goal to make anywhere between, you know I don't know, 122K to 172K. And as soon as you apply the filters, first, what it will show you is what is the total distribution of wages from a lower end and the upper end in the city of San Francisco. Then it shows you all the employers meeting your wage goals, which is, in between 122K to, yeah, oh, sorry, the lower bound being, anywhere from, let's say, yeah, 122K to the upper bound being from, I don't know, yeah, 170, 172K, right? And then you apply the filters. Now, there were none here in this case, but then let's say, you increase this range a little bit and you increase this range and you apply, and you get a bunch of employers that meet those goals, right? So these could be your potential employers that you want to apply for, or you could also look for the job titles that generally pay the wages that you're looking for, right? And so, we just, again, as we said, we just scratched three different types of categories, um, which is informational, what if, and goal based. Now, within each of these, again, you have subcategories. So the number of combinations in which you can use these reports to up your salary are almost limitless. And so this is a quick overview of the platform. Hope it was helpful. You could continue to look at the use case videos that we have for candidates, recruiters and staffers, and employers as well. And hopefully you can relate to some of our clients who candidates who made pretty big increases in their base salaries after using our platform. On the other hand, recruiters and staffers who were able to help many of the candidates get hired in the various companies and employers, their dream jobs, and building more loyalty with both the employers and the candidates. Um, all right, so that's the end of this intro video. Again, this is a lot of data, a lot of information in here. We'll try to break it down into many more reports. So keep watching the space where we publish all of the videos. Um, and thank you if you have survived till the end of this video. Thank you very much.